Picture this. After weeks of filtering your usability study, you're finally finished and ready to begin writing your report. You open your notes to begin analyzing your data, and you have no idea what they mean. As a human factors researcher, this is my nightmare. Hi, I'm Lizzie, and welcome back to Research Collective's Healthcare Human Factors and User Experience channel. As a human factors researcher, I know I've experienced the situation that I just described. And if you're a human factors or user experience researcher, I'm willing to bet you have too, at least to some degree. So today, I'm going to share some steps that you can take to optimize your note-taking and make your data analysis and report writing that much easier. So let's begin by talking about what you can do before your study starts. And effective notes begin with an effective note guide. This is sometimes called a data sheet or a data log. And here at Research Collective, we like to use a spreadsheet for our note guide. The first step for creating an effective note guide is to consider what questions your study is trying to answer and what data you will need to collect in order to answer them. So let's start by building an example note guide for a validation study for a pen injector. Using a template like the one you see here as a starting place for your note guide can save you a lot of time. You can, of course, customize the template to meet the needs of your individual study. Let's consider what questions you'll want to answer and the data you'll need for our validation study. For a study like this one, you'll want to collect task completion scores, such as successes, close calls, difficulties, and use errors. And you'll probably also want to collect qualitative notes about your objective observations and subjective feedback from participants about each task. For our pen injector validation, let's keep it really simple and imagine we only have 3 tasks for our study. We'll add those tasks to the left-hand column here. And it's a good idea to add each task success criteria to the note guide as well. For each task, we'll include 2 rows. In one row, we can record qualitative notes about what the participant did and said during the task and during debriefing interviews. And in the next row, we can record the task score. And every time we have a new participant, we can add another column for that participant's data. Now that we have our data sheet set up, let's talk about how to use it. It's common practice in human factors researcher to have a 2-person team, so a moderator and a note taker conducting the sessions. And when that's the case, it's important that the moderator and note taker align on what information is important and how it should be recorded. So using a system for scoring can be really helpful for this. So for example, we might assign a success a number 2, a close call a number 3, an operational difficulty a number 1, and a use error a 0. But you can use whatever system makes the most sense for you and your research team. Different researchers will also likely have different styles of note-taking. It's important to remember that there's no one right way to take notes, but understanding your note-taker style can be really helpful, especially when someone other than the note-taker is responsible for writing the report. Now that we have our note guide set up, let's talk about some best practices for taking notes during the study. The best note takers know what information is important and what is not. If you add too much information to your notes, the important data can get lost in the noise. Not every piece of information is pertinent to the study questions, which means we don't need to record every little thing that happens in the study. So resist the urge to transcribe the entire session. So for example, let's go back to our pen injector validation study from before. Let's imagine we're evaluating the task of removing the pen cap. We observed the participant successfully remove the cap in 1 second by pinching it with their left thumb and forefinger and pulling it straight off. To determine what details are relevant to include in our notes, let's refer back to our study questions. So since this is a validation study, we're most concerned about whether or not the participant successfully removed the cap, like we have in our success criteria here. So it's unlikely that we'll need to include the details about how they removed it or how long it took them. However, if the study was actually concerned about whether participants twisted or pulled the cap to remove it, we should definitely include that information in our notes. So in this case, we can probably include something simple like this in our notes. Communication between the moderator and the note taker during the session is really invaluable when it comes to making sure that your data is accurate and complete. A live note guide that your moderator and note taker both have added access to is a really great way to do this. This way, the moderator and note taker can check each other. So if the moderator notices perhaps the note taker input a score incorrectly, or maybe the note taker notices that the moderator overlooked a question, they can communicate in real time to ensure that the data is accurate and complete. So for example, if a use error occurred during a task, the note taker should help the moderator to ensure no follow-ups are overlooked and a comprehensive debrief occurs. The note taker can do this by flagging the use error in the data sheet so the moderator sees it when it comes time for debrief. And this is where conditional formatting in your spreadsheet can be really helpful. So as you can see in our note guide here, participant 1 committed a use error during the task of delivering the injection. The conditional formatting flags this use error in red, so it's easy for the moderator to see when going back for debrief. And additionally, the note taker can flag that additional follow-up is needed using whatever method the moderator and note taker agree upon before the study. So here we can imagine the note taker flag the task with this to indicate to the moderator that follow-up and further debrief is needed. The note taker can also help the moderator by formulating questions to help the moderator with debriefing. So they can leave these questions in the data sheet for the moderator. So when the moderator goes back to debrief, it can help them remember what happened and what questions they should ask. If the note taker doesn't think the moderator has gone deep enough to identify a solid root cause of the use error, they should also communicate this to the moderator and let them know that additional follow-up is needed. So it's critical that both researchers review the notes at the end of the session to confirm there are no further questions to be asked before the participant is dismissed. After each session, the moderator and note taker should review the notes together to ensure they make sense and all the necessary information for analysis and reporting is included. During this time, it's also helpful to denote a root cause in the note guide while the session is fresh in your mind. It doesn't need to be report ready yet, but a brief note can help when it does come time to write your report. Now that the study is complete, let's talk about what to do next. If the researchers followed the advice we talked about in this video, there's not much left to do but get started on data analysis. But it's still good practice to review the full data set once more for completeness. And once the study has concluded, the raw notes should be preserved. So any analysis that's completed should be completed separately from your raw notes. That could be in a new spreadsheet or in a new tab. For more human factors insights, check out the rest of our channel or visit the resource pages on our website. That's research-collective.com. Thanks for watching.